I plan on knocking out Eddie in spectacular fashion, viral KO tonight.
Fight fans, welcome back to Hit Sport. George St. Pierre said there were three types of people in combat sports: the fighters, the athletes, and the artists, but with a relentless work ethic. Natural star power and dominance in almost all areas. The choice regarding the UFC's new bantamweight star is as clear as ever.
And they both punch at the same time.
Now, smashing his way through the division, we look at the dominance of an outspoken contender that has crumbled almost every single one of his opponents.
Wow!
Now, his fans often call him Sugar, but you may know him as Sean O'Malley. Here we look at the unusual rise of Sugar Sean O'Malley. 10 years ago, the Montana native signed the dotted line to enter Dana White's Contender Series. Staying under the radar, O'Malley picked up his first 16 victories. Knocking most of his opponents out in classic Sean O'Malley fashion. It was O'Malley's 17th fight that he would be scheduled to meet Eddie Wineland in the octagon. Wineland, who was fighting out of Portage, Indiana, had fought the likes of the California kid Uriah Faber, bantamweight champion Renan Barao, and bantamweight title contender Joseph Benavidez, and many more.
I'm as good as I say I am. I felt like in control of that fight the entire time. I felt like I was dominating the fight over a top 10 guy, and
some MMA fans were questioning the level of competition the up-and-comer O'Malley was set to face off against, but with an ever-evolving style.
This is what you want to see from your fighter.
O'Malley's star power would absolutely erupt after flatlining Wineland a minute 54 seconds into their fight.
Highlights, and I wanted to put him up against the cage and tee off like that. When I land those big shots,
making it known that Sugar was here to stay. Now, some were convinced O'Malley would rise to be the next title contender, others not so much. But everybody had been put on notice of O'Malley's Conor McGregor-like star power.
I was boxing the bleeding head off him, kicking the bleeding leg off him. Usual show he dive to close the distance.
After swiftly defeating Wineland, O'Malley was set to face off against Marlon Chito Vera. This was, yet again, a steep rise in competition for the Montana native.
See how Eddie's hand went down to try to find the uppercut, and then O'Malley just dropped that right hand right over the top. Crazy. That was nasty.
Before the fight, O'Malley would describe Chito's fighting style as basic, and explaining that Chito was not as good as people think he is.
Rather than 50 Gs. But I'll continue to do this throughout my career.
Sugar was confident he would put Chito out in the first round. Now, Sugar had begun to build up this mystique of a fighter who could beat anyone, and had now become the new wild card of the bantamweight division. Unfortunately, during O'Malley's fight against Marlon Vera, O'Malley was hit with a kick to the perineal nerve, making O'Malley unable to stand and fight.
Oh! Huge elbow from Chito!
This exact same injury has led to losses for UFC stars like Michael Chandler and Israel Adesanya. This too led to Chito's victory over O'Malley. Sugar had now suffered his first defeat inside the octagon, if you can call it that.
Sugar Sean O'Malley!
It would be close to a year later following that injury that O'Malley would finally be back in action after waiting in the shadows. Unfortunately for his next opponent, Brazilian fighter Thomas Almeida, Sugar had spent that time preparing. Sugar was set to face off against the Brazilian at UFC 260.
He's doing it again.
And again, the hesitation. He gets it.
Like many fights before this, in round 3, O'Malley would send the Brazilian to the shadow realm with a quick and clean left hand. Another check, and yet another addition to the highlight reel for O'Malley. Sugar was back, and he was better than ever.
Ref's like, no, you gotta keep fighting. I mean, wow. And it flattens him, stiffens him.
He was.
Next on the chopping block was UFC contender Louis Smolka. Smolka, who was coming off of a defeat, had fought the likes of UFC champion Brandon Moreno, Tim Elliott, and UFC title challenger Ray Borg. Smolka was gearing up to put O'Malley away quickly. This matchup would have been yet another big step up for O'Malley.
Get ready to come. You better look better than that.
And would have been a good chance for Smolka to steal Sugar's star power. Unfortunately, Smolka pulled out due to an infection, rendering him medically unfit, which would then make way for a new fighter by the name of Chris Moutinho to step in on a few days' notice.
Right here, you see O'Malley land a beautiful little check right hook. as he's evading. Look at that jab, man, by O'Malley.
While the matchup was a lopsided mess, it was the only fill-in fighter the UFC could provide on such short notice. For the entire 3 rounds, Sugar put on a clinical striking display against the up-and-comer.
Right. I mean, I can't argue either way, but to see the kid finish the fight.
Unfortunately for Moutinho, he was the next victim of Sugar and the newest addition to O'Malley's highlight reel.
The kid is trying. I mean, he's not hurt in the sense that he can't walk.
Refusing to stop his momentum towards the top, O'Malley would then annihilate another Brazilian by the name of Raulian Paiva.
Cara, eu falei que eu não sabia como eu ia ganhar. Não importava como.
Who had also earned his way into the UFC by way of Dana White's Contender Series. Paiva was on a 3-fight win streak. Sugar fought Paiva at UFC 269, but by the looks of the press conference, the fans were almost more interested in seeing the outspoken O'Malley go up against his new enemy Cody Garbrandt.
Let's go! Hey, listen, this dude, he comes out here and he does the thing, he walks his walk, he dresses, does the hair. But he's got different problems than no love problems. He's got Holion to my right, and Holion is battle-tested in here way farther than he's ever been.
While Paiva had moments of confidence against O'Malley, just like almost every other opponent Sugar had gone up against, Paiva was the next victim of Sugar.
Right here, you see the right hand lands over the top, hurts Highland Paiva.
But instead of diabetes, he went down from punches, another victim, and another highlight reel. Except this time, fans were beginning to question why it had seemed like O'Malley's opponents had decreased in difficulty.
Nice body kick by O'Malley to close the round.
No one is impressed if you're 100-0 from fighting tomato cans. The fans wanted an increase in competition, so Sugar delivered. Up next, Pedro Munoz. This is what fans were waiting for. This was a real step towards a title fight. Pedro Munoz had fought the likes of Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, Aljamain Sterling, and Cody Garbrandt. The list goes on and on. O'Malley was set to meet Munoz at UFC 276. Munoz was unlike any of O'Malley's previous opponents.
Good right hand over the top. Oh, just missed with that wheel kick.
He had fought the most UFC stars and would be yet another steep hill to climb for Sugar. Munoz had also never been finished, which could pose an issue for the knockout king O'Malley.
Good leg kick there by Munoz. Sort of telegraphed that spinning offering.
Munoz was ranked number 9, which would mark O'Malley's first fight with a top 10 ranked opponent. However, 3 minutes into the second round,
Stinging jab from O'Malley.
O'Malley landed a straight right punch onto Pedro's eye, which caused swelling for Pedro. O'Malley caught him again with an accidental eye poke in the second round, which caused the fight to have a timeout. Now Pedro claimed he could not see out of his eye, so the fight was stopped and declared a no contest. However, fight fans were skeptical of this ending, stating that they believed the straight right hand in the first round, which is what caused Munoz's eye to swell.
Tell what happens with
see,
the eye.
oh, there it is, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Looks worse on that end.
And not the eye poke like Munoz had stated. Some had said that the excuse of the eye poke was an easy way out for Munoz. O'Malley himself even stated that he dominated the fight.
Now declared a no decision.
Nevertheless, this was a disappointing end to what should have been a night for fight fans to see the type of fighter O'Malley really was. At this point, Sean O'Malley had renegotiated his contract with the UFC.
The Sugar Show is upon us. Here is the Montana native, the 23-year-old Sean O'Malley.
They had seen his drastic rise in popularity, which could be attributed to his outlandish appearance, his fame on Twitch, or his appeal with the younger audiences.
The one I play is squad, so you can have 3, 4 people on your team.
Whatever it was working, and the UFC had taken notice. In a sport where attention equals money, Sean was certainly winning the attention of fans and even other fighters. One fighter he certainly grew the attention of was Russian fighter and former UFC champion Peter Yan. Now, despite all the trash talk, O'Malley was not aware that Yan would be the next opponent he would stand across from in the octagon.
To the anxiousness and the nerves that we all feel as sports fans right now.
Even O'Malley's biggest fans had massive doubts about how he would hold up against the Russian. UFC 280 would answer the question that was on everyone's mind, which was, how good is Sean O'Malley actually?
I have so much potential. I have so many more knockout moves that I want to show.
We see fighters that have to go through hell and back to even get close to earning a title shot. shot, the likes of Leon Edwards, Tony Ferguson, even Khabib. While Sean wasn't at that point just yet, he was close after just 5 straight wins.
But nothing a little medicine can't fix after the fight, after my after party.
But Jan would be his biggest test to date, and the Sugar Show was open to the challenge. The Las Vegas odds had O'Malley at a plus 225 underdog.
Now Jan shoots. A lot of fans were expecting.
Suggesting he only had about a 30% chance to win the fight, with Jan sitting at a minus 275, putting him at a 73% chance of winning. The man they called No Mercy was ready to put down a beating, but it wouldn't go how he had planned. Sugar was quick to display the distance he posed over Jan, who was certainly the shorter fighter.
Body kick from Jan, a shot from
Takedown by the Sugar Show.
While many had anticipated that Jan would simply steamroll through O'Malley, things were turning out differently for the Russian. While Jan displayed moments of greatness, it simply wasn't enough.
at the top of this division.
It seemed Jan had a tremendous amount of strength to put Sean down, but Jan simply couldn't contain Sean's striking ability. Jan had scored 46% of his takedown attempts.
Oh, my goodness.
Although no significant damage was being done while in control, Sean, on the other hand, had displayed more impactful shots and had outlanded Jan.
Jan a little bit more measured with his offense, but has landed 58% of his significant strike attempts.
By 26 significant shots, 16 of them coming in the third and final round. Many said that the third round is likely where the judges shifted to, awarding the win to O'Malley. After the decision was read, there was an outcry among MMA fighters and fans, stating that Jan was robbed.
What a fight! Sean O'Malley, Petr Yan go the distance.
Many started to notice that the bias towards cage control and wrestling was no longer a factor in the judging criteria, for if it was, Jan would have been the clear winner. The likes of Khabib, Dana White, and even commentator Joe Rogan had felt that Jan was in fact robbed of a win. During the post-fight event, even Sean looked unsure of whether or not he was the true victor. It was not until later that he confidently felt he had won. On his YouTube channel, O'Malley would go on to say, "It's not my effing fault. You guys want to go tell the refs, the judges, that I lost. You guys want to go tell Dana. You guys want to go tell whoever. Don't tell me save it, boys, because that's not what my record says." Months have now since passed since O'Malley's win, and since he has risen to the #2 contender in the bantamweight division that would finally put him in a position to receive the long-awaited shot against reigning champion Aljamain Sterling. Time will only tell if the outspoken superstar can do what the likes of TJ Dillashaw, Henry Cejudo, and Petr Yan have failed to do, which is to defeat the champ. This is Hit Sport, and this is our take on the unusual rise of Sugar Sean O'Malley. If you agree or disagree or have something else to add, post it below in the comments. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you want more content, hit the subscribe button down below, and also click that bell notification so whenever we upload something, you will be the first to receive that notification. Hit Sport, out.